Hello. Welcome to my very first video of my IVF journey. So I am Cassie and I am 34 years old and I have decided to share my experience with IVF. Where should I start? So we can start with my diagnosis. So I have been attempting with my husband to have a baby for probably 6 years. So I began getting tested early on with my primary provider and found out that I have a diagnosis of unicorn uterus. So I at first was really bummed, and I think it was a OB specialist that gave me my diagnosis, and she had very poor bedside manner, I felt at the time back then, and printed off some paperwork on my diagnosis and what it meant for me, and statistics of how many people have been able to carry full term with my diagnosis that were kind of stifling. She also said to me, if you Google it, you're not going to be able to find much on it. So just to let you know, you need to go see a specialist at a clinic, a fertility clinic. So fast forward to our first experience at the University of Minnesota. When we attempted to do IUI, we had a couple cycles of IUI that were not successful. Back then I did take Clomid, and sorry, I'm at the pool with my nieces. They're in the pool and I'm trying to multitask. So Clomid, I had a adverse reaction to Clomid. I had some vision issues early on, and had to stop taking Clomid. I had pretty bad headaches, double vision, some pressure on my eyes, so I had to stop taking Clomid, and I didn't really feel like it was going to be a good turnout back then. I felt like after I found out that my body isn't responding to these medications that are typical and that people usually respond to, I kind of just felt pretty bummed back then. I also had some, I don't know if I just didn't really feel good about the clinic, all that kind of stuff. So my husband and I took a little bit of time off. Oh, my husband's name is Ra, so that's just easier for me to say. So Ra and I took a little bit of time off and decided to start pursuing IVF about a year or so ago. And we're now at a clinic in Minneapolis that we love. Our consultation with our doctor, right now, when we went to our consultation, we both knew, I think at that moment, that it was going to be a good fit, and that we both felt hopeful, positive, confident, and just like it was a great environment. So I started my very first cycle of IVF in March, and I started off taking birth control first. Then I did Lupron. I started off with a lower dose of Menopur, 75 IU, and then I did Follistim as well. So I did that, and I was on my stim meds for 14 days. And around day 9, I would say, day 8, 9, things still weren't happening for me. My ovaries weren't being stimulated, my follicles weren't growing. So that was around the time I think that I got a little nervous and I was getting a little worried, but I was trying to stay as positive and hopeful as possible. Despite the doctor saying, well, still not really looking like we wanted to, them kinds of appointments. So we went until day 14. We, at the end, had 2 follicles. One was measuring 18, the other, I think, was 15. we decided not to go through with the procedure, but instead to just trigger and try to time intercourse, which was not successful. So then we started birth control in May and are now on our second cycle. So for this cycle, I started off on 300 of Follistim in the evening and 150 of Menopur in the morning. And so I did not take the Lupron. This approach, the doctor called the antagonist approach, or the antagonist cycle for me. And I believe that it's because at day 5 or 7, you start taking ganirelix or a medication like that helps with not ovulating. So you get it on the back end rather than in the beginning. And so I have right now been taking stim meds for 10 days. I started last Sunday. Day 5 for me, I went in for an ultrasound and to do an estradiol blood work test, and at that time my body was still quiet. Saturday was day 7, and I at that time was so happy, and Ra and I just couldn't stop smiling that day when the nurse came in and told us that we had 3 follicles, which I was just so thankful for. So I had 2 measuring at 13 and 1 at 12. And then I went in yesterday by myself for an ultrasound, and at that time I had 5 follicles. So I'm so happy that things are going well, and I'm super hopeful that things will continue to go well. And tomorrow I go in for my next ultrasound and hope that the doctor and the doctor has decided, and the nurse tells me that I can take my trigger shot soon. It's getting closer, and I'm happy. I'm super excited, and I will update my page tomorrow.